Hello, I'm Adam hailing from partsFUNknown, and this is How Adam Would Book, a show where I look at infamous missed booking opportunities and try to do them better. And this one shouldn't be too hard, because bloody hell! Bloody hell, though. Bloody hell. The last 2 years of Big E's career, which we all hope are not the last 2 years of Big E's career, those years were so very weird. But first, a quick recap on the WWE career of the man with the sexiest hips in pro wrestling that isn't named Andrew Datson. Big E Langston was, of course, in NXT. Fun fact, WWE shot an unaired pilot of what would become the rebranded NXT from Full Sail University. The first match of that pilot, and therefore the first match technically in the NXT black and gold era, was Big E Langston versus Xavier Woods. Whoa, written in the stars, a million miles away. Big E's gimmick in that time was beating his opponent so bad that he would demand a 5 count rather than a 3 count. That's why when he debuted on the main roster, his theme tune was, "Don't need a 3 count, I need 5." A track that WWE kept for him, but actually they never used the 5 count gimmick on the main roster, because an NXT gimmick translating to the main roster unscathed is a figment of your fucking imagination. The 5 count was actually a gimmick that already existed. King Kong Bundy had it in the 80s. It was a heel thing to do, force the ref to count 5 in an exhibition of arrogant dominance, and it was intended as a heel gimmick for Big E too, but the fans took to it, chanting it. They turned Big E face. There's just something inherently lovable about Big E, I suppose. Langston became the second NXT champion ever, pinning Seth Rollins. He'd go on to lose the title to Bo Dallas. He was basically the hidden NXT champion, because people tend to remember Seth for being the first one, Bo for being NXT champion during the first NXT special, NXT Arrival, but not so much Big E. He debuted on the main roster in late 2012, attacking Cena and aligning with Dolph Ziggler, the man with the second sexiest hip swivel in pro wrestling history, and AJ Lee during the high point of Dolph's career, being Mr. Money in the Bank and only occasionally having human shit dumped on him by Big Match John. I promise you that is actually, it is part of his career highlight run. Langston and Lee would eventually betray Dolph when Dolph went face, but by the end of the year, Big E Langston would also be a face and be on a singles run, becoming IC champion, beating Curtis Axel, and that's a title he would hold until Extreme Rules 2014, which, you know, sounds good, but there's no greater curse than being the Intercontinental Champion in the 2010s, when your job is basically to act as jobber to whomever's having a main event feud at the time. So by mid-2014, Langston's star was severely dimmed, but that summer is when Big E would discover that after every darkness dawns a new day. Do you get it? The New Day formed in the summer of 2014 as a gospel-tinged happiness cult whose main mission statements were smiles, dancing, and, I don't know, probably Jesus. Smiles and dancing, at least, Big E would champion to this day. Work those hips. I can't do it. I'm sat down. The gimmick didn't work in its intended form. Blandly happy baby faces can generally get in the bin, but when fans turned on it, WWE actually course corrected. And what was once lame when performed earnestly became entertaining when performed obnoxiously. The New Day became a bunch of scurrilous dorks who hid deviousness behind false platitudes of positivity, much like Kurt Angle, Edge and Christian back in the day. And they got over just as much as those guys, because similarly, all 3 members of the stable, 1, really f***ing liked each other for realsies, and 2, were really f***ing funny for realsies. The New Day were that rarity, a unicorn, you might even say, a wrestling joke that was actually funny. They got a trombone, and the rest was history. New Day have been together on and off for almost 10 years at this point, earning 11 tag title runs, including one that broke Demolition's record for longest single tag team reign for men's wrestlers in WWE. That reign now actually belongs to the Usos, who, by the way, are pretty much the Joker to New Day's Batman, always having amazing matches like their Hell in a Cell match in 2017, which was, to quote F. Scott Fitzgerald, choice. Kofi won the WWE Championship in 2019, due in part to New Day earning him the Mania shot in one of the best booked gauntlet matches in WWE history. Good luck, Uso, because we forfeit. Mwah. In 2020, almost completely unceremoniously, Big E was separated from the rest of New Day by the draft. He looked super sad about that, because he was. Although there was a nice official handoff moment where Kofi told Big E to have his singles run. Now, that was nice. Big E became Intercontinental Champion again, feuded for ever with Apollo Crews, wrestled that drum match that at no point featured anyone getting hit by a drum at WrestleMania, before becoming the only black person to ever hold the Money in the Bank briefcase, which doesn't feel like a real statistic, but it is. It was a wonderful moment, much like Kofi before, and people thought that maybe WWE had just resigned itself to never pulling the trigger on Big E, so when they did, in their first, proper, hey, the pandemic's over pay-per-view, everyone was euphoric. Perhaps even more so than Kofi, because Kofi's run always felt like it came with the feeling that it was happening after Kofi's prime, whereas Big E had years and years left to go. Or so we thought. Big E cashed in on Bobby Lashley in September 2021 to win the WWE Championship, and seeing how happy that made the locker room was truly a wonderful thing. Those were some heart-melting tweets that came out. However, Big E's title run was not long for this world. He started losing on TV a lot. Never a good sign at the beginning of your world title run. Ray. It's weird how they didn't do that with Reigns when he won the Universal title, isn't it? Big E had good matches against Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns on pay-per-view. There's definitely something there. But at day one, Big E was scheduled to successfully defend, mind you, the title in a four-way with Bobby Lashley, Kevin Owens, and Seth. I just can't bring myself to actually call him freaking Rollins. Lesnar was scheduled to face Roman in an ironic match because nothing could be more New Year, New Us than WWE booking Reigns versus Lesnar again. However, when Roman caught COVID, he dropped out of the show and Lesnar was inserted into the WWE title match and won it. Not only that, but the match was over in 8 minutes. Not only that, but Lesnar pinned Big E clean. He could have pinned anyone. Kevin Owens were right there. No, Lesnar pinned Big E in a match he wasn't supposed to be in to claim a title that he not only didn't need, but would also drop to Bobby Lashley in 29 days and then get it back because Lashley got injured, rendering everything pointless. Company morale was reported to be at an all-time low around the Royal Rumble. It was reported by Sean Ross Sapp. Thank you, Sean. Partly due, in fact, to this mess. In the Royal Rumble, Big E was eliminated quietly and then shipped off to SmackDown equally quietly to rejoin the New Day like Kofi was when he lost the title to Brock Lesnar in a manner unbefitting of a champion, to build to a Lesnar match against someone else, which was rendered ultimately pointless. Jesus Christ. Then, on the road to WrestleMania, Big E took a botched belly-to-belly overhead suplex from Ridge Holland on the outside of the ring, landed on his head, and broke his neck. Though the injury thankfully didn't need surgery, Big E still hasn't been seen on WWE TV, and we all miss him very, very dearly. Big E's WWE title run was truly dispiriting. It felt like he did everything right. Like, he was funny, charismatic, the fans liked him, he could go in the ring, but none of it mattered as his championship reign got sucked up into the increasingly chaotic maelstrom that was WWE's creative in its final months of Vince's era at the top. The ultimate irony being, of course, in all of this, is that back in the NXT days when both Roman Reigns and Big E Langston were in NXT, Triple H felt like Roman was the guy to build the company around, but Vince wanted Langston. Poor, lovely guy. Let me have a go.
Hello, Adam here. Would you like more fantasy booking? Of course you would, you little piglet. Then head on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk, where you can get early access to next month's booking right now. You can watch it right now over on our Patreon. And what is it going to be? It's how Adam would book Brock Lesnar's retirement. Head over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk now to catch that now.
So I'm at a crossroads here. On one hand, I get the fans who want Big E's title run to be Big E doing his own thing and independent of the New Day. Felt like Big E never quite clicked fully as a single star because he was still kind of in New Day mode. He wore the New Day style singlet. He had a new theme tune, but he was still preaching positivity, just with his parents not letting his best friends come over to play anymore. So he felt constantly unfinished, which some of it works. Like, it doesn't make sense to completely reinvent Big E's character, but there you go. It's like Roman after the Shield. But then there is the question of the New Day. Should they feature heavily in a storyline like this? And I believe that they should, and here's why. See, New Day has been a part of the WWE landscape for the better part of a decade, and the friendship at the heart of it's real. We know it's real. Years of organic and believable friendship has informed Big E's character, and you should always try to use wrestlers' backstories when you can, because it's what makes them unique. Like, wrestling piles lore on top of lore on top of lore, and if you acknowledge all of it, it makes characters super vibrant and interesting, rather than if you just like paint over them with a single coat. A happy singles wrestler who's doing his best, hundreds of them. A wrestler with two dyed-in-the-wool best friends who would die for him, but also want him to succeed on his own bearings and have survived for as long as they have in an industry where everyone's backstabbing each other. That's unique and interesting, and casting off unique and interesting attributes to one's character for the sake of nebulous and unconvincing new directions, it's not worth it. So the New Day will feature a lot in this story because they're Big E's life, man. He's a real person. Treat wrestlers like real people. So we begin in September 2021. Big E is on Raw along with the rest of the New Day. Instead of cashing in after a match between Bobby Lashley and Randy Orton, even though, yeah, he did it in advance, Big E instead announces he's cashing in his contract at Extreme Rules for a WWE Championship match against Bobby Lashley. Guess you could call it Big E Extreme Rules. Kofi asks why Big E has done this. He could cash in whenever he wants. Big E says to Kofi, do you remember Kofi Mania? Everything you had to go through to get into that main event. That's why. In the build-up to Extreme Rules, the Hurt Business reunites. Cedric and Shelton being courted and finally recruited by MVP. Bygones be bygones, telling them that Bobby may be the almighty, but there's strength in numbers. So, of course, to equal the playing field, Big E calls upon New Day and their multiple pull-apart brawls featuring all 6 men. It's announced that Extreme Rules, Big E versus Bobby Lashley, will be a cage match to keep all members of New Day and Hurt Business out. This also adds another stipulation match to the Extreme Rules 2021 card, bringing the total up to 2. Jesus wept. The Raw before the show ends with all 3 members of Hurt Business beating down all 3 members of the New Day with chairs, MVP telling New Day they're a bunch of merch-shilling punchlines. Once a joke, always a joke. At Extreme Rules, New Day and Hurt Business brawl all around the outside of the cage. Bobby climbs to the top of the cage, Big E climbs up with him, hoists Lashley up on his shoulders, jumps from the top, hits the big ending. 1, 2, 3. Big E is WWE champion. In the October draft, New Day stay on Raw alongside Big E. And one other major change, and maybe this is just a personal one for me, although it will have some storyline implications. I want Big E to have a new finisher, please. I'm sorry, I hate the big ending so much. It looks shit, everyone. Everyone almost always takes the bump on their forearms. No one, how does this hurt you? And it looks like Big E is potentially just trying to break his own shoulder. I'm sorry, I hate it. After Extreme Rules, Big E and Bobby Lashley have a rematch on Raw, which Big E wins by using the jackhammer. Big E's got the strength to pull it off, as well as the body mass to make the landing look really painful. He starts to use it regularly, and that brings out the man himself, Goldberg. Now, at Crown Jewel, Big E is booked to defend the WWE title against Goldberg. Couple of reasons why I enjoy this. 1, Big E is not secure in the top spot yet, so people will be hella worried that the title was only put on him so Goldberg didn't have to beat Lashley to become champion again, so they're going to be hella relieved when Big E wins it. Number 2, Big E's dream match is to face Goldberg, and I like it when wrestlers' dream matches come true, it's just nice. And number 3, this can be used to officially pass the jackhammer to Big E, and this becomes his new finisher. The big ending won't be enough. He tries to hit it on Goldberg, hits it a couple of times, Goldberg kicks out. Goldberg is essentially beaten. He looks up at Big E, he nods, he hoists him up, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3. So we're on the road to Survivor Series, and the New Day are wrestling RK Bro and the Hurt Business on Raw for the tag belt, and a miscommunication occurs between Riddle and Orton to begin a long road to RK Bro's breakup in time for Mania 38. Might as well have that match actually happen if Orton's career is indeed winding down. And New Day win the tag belts, Xavier and Kofi, which sets up the main event of Survivor Series, the New Day versus the Bloodline. WWE and Raw Tag Team Champions versus Universal and SmackDown Tag Team Champions in a 3-on-3 elimination match. And this is how it has to be booked. It has to be booked quite carefully. The first man to be eliminated is Xavier Woods, as Jay rolls him up in about 5 minutes with a small package and eliminates him, and you can tell Xavier's really pissed at himself. As Xavier's forced to leave, Roman holds up the Universal title at Big E. Later in the match, Roman hits Kofi with the same title. Jimmy hits Kofi with a splash. Kofi Kingston is eliminated. It's down to Big E versus the Bloodline. Finally, as the match wears on, Big E and Roman come face to face. Heated exchange, get to see more of an intense side of Big E, wailing on Roman for treating his friends that way. Big E runs to hit his through the rope spear on Roman, but Roman blasts him with the Universal title. But this time, the referee catches it and Roman is eliminated via disqualification. He shrugs, smiles, holds up the Universal title as Big E is hit with the double splash from the Usos, but kicks out. Big E eliminates both Usos by himself to win the match for Monday Night Raw. Roman doesn't get pinned, but Big E closes out a Big Four pay-per-view as a dominant champion. However, one important thing to remember here, Xavier Woods is really annoyed at himself for being eliminated so quickly at Survivor Series. New Day are there to support him. They say there's nothing to worry about. Maybe there is. So we're on the road to the Day 1 pay-per-view in 2022, a pay-per-view that is literally as near to being themed after the New Day as you can get. New Year, Day 1, New Day. How did WWE beat all 3 members of New Day at Day 1 in real life? Why are they so diametrically opposed to joy? For the pay-per-view, a trios match is booked. The New Day versus the Hurt Business, with the special stipulation being, if Hurt Business win, any member of Hurt Business win, beating any member of the New Day, Bobby Lashley becomes WWE Champion. MVP makes sure to point out, if what happens at Survivor Series happens at Day 1, if Xavier Woods is rolled up in 5 minutes, Big E will lose his title. Hurt Business asks, now we know with the Hurt Business that Bobby Lashley's in charge, but tell me, who's in charge of the New Day? Who? On the road to Day 1, all 3 members of the New Day face off against a member of the Hurt Business on the same episode of Raw. Big E versus Shelton, Kofi versus Cedric, Xavier versus Lashley. Big E wins, Kofi wins, Xavier loses. Xavier is almost inconsolable. He says to Big E, if he's the reason why E loses his title at Day 1, he doesn't know what he'll do. Big E says, well, we'll just keep on doing. That's what. He tells Xavier to get his head right, but as he leaves, he can't help but one look back at Xavier with a slight look of concern. At Day 1, Xavier Woods is rolled up by Cedric Alexander within 5 minutes to get a 2.5 count, narrowly kicking out and immediately rolling to the outside, go, Big E calms him down. It's cool. Later in the match, though, Xavier hesitates and doesn't tag in because he's racked with self-doubt. Ultimately, though, Big E and Bobby Lashley take each other out on the outside, and Xavier hits a coast-to-coast elbow drop on Cedric Alexander to win the match for his team and keeping the title around Big E's waist. At the Royal Rumble, a more standard singles feud, Big E versus Seth Rollins. In the build, Seth shows footage of Xavier hitting the elbow drop and getting the pinfall, saying, shouldn't you be the champion, Woods? You got the pinfall. Big E responds by showing Seth some footage of his own, the time that Big E beat Seth Rollins' ass for the NXT Championship. Whapa. At the Rumble, Big E retains. Rolling on through Elimination Chamber, Big E defends the championship against Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Matt Riddle, and winning a qualifying match to get in, Xavier Woods. Big E and Xavier agree to watch each other's backs, but when it comes down to the two of them, may the best man win. Xavier does well in the match, eliminates Matt Riddle, helps Big E eliminate AJ Styles with Midnight Hour, and at one point, the two of them do stand face to face and chest to chest. Are they gonna fight? They don't. Later in the match, Xavier's up on the top rope for the elbow drop. Both Rollins and Big E are down. Xavier briefly hesitates. Who's he gonna hit? He flies towards Rollins, but Lashley hits the spear on Xavier in midair. Big E tries to roll over to break up the pin, but can't make it in time. Xavier is eliminated, and Big E ultimately wins the chamber match and retains. On Raw, there is a gauntlet match to determine Big E's challenger for WrestleMania. Big E will start the gauntlet and face off against all of Raw's main eventers. Whoever pins him will challenge him at WrestleMania. But If Big E can survive the entire gauntlet, he can handpick his Mania opponent himself. By the way, Brock has already won the Royal Rumble and he's picked Roman for WrestleMania. Just by the way. Big E survives the entire gauntlet and announces who he wants to face for WrestleMania. He wants to face Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods in a New Day triple threat. They are his family. They have been as much as part of his title reign as he has, and if he can give back, he's going to. By the way, it's worth pointing out, I don't feel great booking around a career-threatening injury, but if Big E's not on SmackDown feuding with the Brute, I feel okay in saying his neck injury is avoided this way. We'll press. It's fine. But this is when the Xavier Woods storyline begins to boil over. Woods starts to feel the pressure of being the only member of the team without a world title win. He feels like this is charity from Big E. He's starting to get, not resentful, but just, he's chatting back, and this upsets the champion with Kofi in the middle playing peacemaker. There's hints that Xavier Woods may go heel, just that little extra spice you need for an all babyface triple threat. At Mania we have the New Day triple threat. Finally, the finish sees Big E go down. Xavier grabs the belt. All the crowd are chanting no, no, no at him. Think of the friendship, Xavier, think of the friendship. But in the end, with the world title on the line, Xavier can't do it. He throws the belt away. Big E retains, winning the New Day triple threat, as he probably should. After the match, Big E offers Xavier Woods a handshake. Xavier, with tears in his eyes, pushes it away, and they embrace. All of the New Day embrace at WrestleMania, because ultimately they realize their friendship is more precious than the WWE title, and we could probably do with seeing that lesson more in professional wrestling. And then the last feud of Big E's title run versus Edge. I thought Evil Edge at the top of Judgment Day was really interesting, sitting atop a burning throne. Him being transplanted from the group still doesn't make sense. So Big E versus Demon Edge and his group of goth boys. I would have Edge be the person to dethrone Big E for the title via Judgment Day shenanigans. That group can grow again. New Day can back up Big E against them, have some great trios matches, because trios matches are bloody great. And also because, despite every other friendship in wrestling history being doomed to fail, the New Day will always have each other's backs. And in that way, they are some of the most inspirational wrestlers ever. And that is how I would book Big E's WWE Championship reign. Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to share it about the internet. I don't care what you do with your life. You're nothing to me. That's not true. Please like and subscribe. I'm not doing another take. That's the way the video ends. What are you gonna do, Ollie? You do nothing. Jam that jam, everybody.